What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the God of War Ragnarok Valhalla DLC. Long name, maybe not the best name, as I've seen other people actually say online, but what a freaking value for your dollar in the case of $0 being completely free. So here's what we're going to do. We'll talk about the entire thing. I do actually have quite a few things to say about the ending in terms of like the story implications, so I definitely want to do that. We'll do that towards the end of the video in like a spoiler kind of segment. The rest of the stuff is spoiler free. And let's start with the value, because to be honest, that I feel like that's maybe the biggest story. And I think as time goes on, maybe it'll kind of lessen and people will talk more about the actual content. But a big storyline around this entire thing is completely free, right? I mean, let's be real. And it doesn't matter like how you feel about Sony, like what they've been doing or not been doing in terms of like, wanting people's money, right? How they charge or how they don't charge. This is like the best value that we've gotten in an incredibly long time. And it's probably not even subjective, right? Because everybody does have their own kind of qualifications for, okay, well, what's a $60 or $70 game worth to you? And that might be different for you versus somebody else, okay? But what about something that really is DLC, is very meaty, can take, 3 to 4 hours if you power through it, but also can actually kind of take as long as you want, especially if you play on harder difficulties. If you die, if you want to experience everything, every line of dialogue, everything this thing has to offer, you have to play it like 15, 20 times. I actually saw somebody talk about to get like the true ending. You got to go through it 20 times. This thing is massive. Like, it legitimately is big, and it's completely free. So, just to start it off there, an incredible value, something that, I gotta be honest, and not even maybe just Sony, I don't really think anybody would ever do something like this in the modern gaming medium. They're all about money. Everybody needs to make money in order to keep these studios around. And even the way Sony has been acting recently to come out with a product that, and again, like I've seen this online, they could have genuinely made this cost money. Like, they could have charged $10 for this. And I almost feel like that would have been worth it as well, because there is some serious content here. So, in terms of that value, it's absolutely here. And that's really all you need to know, in terms of should you go to play it. You're losing no money and you're getting one heck of a product. As for the product itself, I think it's really good. It reminded me, at least from the gameplay and the story as well, but again, I want to talk about the story towards the end. It reminded me why I liked these games, specifically God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok. It's been some time, since Ragnarok came out a year ago. It feels like longer. Feels like Ragnarok came out longer than 1 year ago. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it feels like it's been a while since I've stepped into that universe. And so to go back in and look, I played it on like their version of normal, which is actually like the second easiest one because all these difficulties are absolutely insane. And you know what? It's a challenge. This game was challenging. This game makes you think. This game makes you truly understand the fighting mechanics of this game. I think actually certain parts of Ragnarok, or maybe even the entire package, I actually think it was easier. Specifically, the harder parts of Ragnarok was easier than the harder parts of God of War 2018. Okay, and I feel like that was like a general thought that people had. This, I think, makes up for it, because it can get legitimately difficult. And again, there's so many difficulty levels, and if you feel like you're doing okay, we'll jump up a difficulty and then you tell me, if you can still handle it. But I mean, that's a real strength of this thing, beyond like literally ignoring any of the story, any of, that stuff at all. The core mechanics, this game makes you fully understand the gameplay of God of War. And then it's got the roguelike stuff obviously comes in pretty big here, right? Because you're building your character basically from scratch. And you know what? This is a really good roguelike. It's not the best one out there, but you're using the pre-existing, conditions of God of War Ragnarok, and you're literally injecting into its veins a roguelike mode of building your character, of getting all these different currencies, and you can use them at the beginning of your run, and some things are permanent, some things are not permanent. You have the chests, and you get to choose what to kind of sink your currency into, or the perks, or the abilities that you have, and you kind of build Kratos up as these levels progress. The doors, they're randomized. Some doors will give you one thing. Maybe it's more health related. Maybe one door leads to a boss, and maybe that can have a special reward. Like, I mean, I'm describing a roguelike game, right? but it's really cool. And you know what? It works really well with the core gameplay of God of War. It wouldn't work for everything, right? Like that's a key thing. It only works like if you have kind of everything set up, and the way that you can kind of build Kratos with the stats, with the perks, with the glyphs and the stuff that they have in this game. Like those things were kind of already built in, right? So you just kind of inject this idea that you start from zero. There's certain things with luck, and you can put it into this thing, you can put it into that thing. I think it does it so well. The enemy types, right? Enemies sometimes being easier, sometimes being harder, the rotation of different enemy classes. And then there's also like the nostalgia, right? And I guess that does lean a little bit more into the story. We'll keep it spoiler free at least for now, but I'm going to get into spoilers in just a second. So a lot of this game revolves around, well, number one, like another Kratos kind of journey, to keep it spoiler free, and Mimir. Actually, Mimir is pretty darn important in this thing, but also a lot of like referencing, and again, spoiler wise, it goes a whole lot more, but this is a nostalgic trip. There is a lot that has to do with the past God of War, a lot of God of War 3, right? A ton of God of War 3, but generally that trilogy, just in general, I would say, a look back at the Kratos of old. And I gotta say, again, keeping it spoiler-free, at least for right now, I overall liked it. I do have some problems with the very end, but I would say overall, to go this deep and to tell, like, literally a story of Kratos and, like, to expand Ragnarok further and to make it free and to do it in a roguelike game is actually kind of wild, right? Like, no matter how I feel about it, doesn't really matter. No matter how I feel about how they did the story, the fact that they did it at all and they connected, because you could have just done, in fact, when we saw the trailer, and I think everybody kind of thought this, when you see the trailer at the Game Awards for this thing, I thought it was only a roguelike mode, right? And now I think they talked like a little bit of story, like there would be some stuff, but if you told me that it had this much story content and this much of a reflection of Kratos' character then versus now, and all these kind of themes, right, they put into this game, I didn't have a clue that was going to happen. I thought it would just be more gameplay heavy, and I think if you're just playing it for the gameplay, you're in for a treat, because I think it does the roguelike gameplay side of things extremely well. If you're doing it just for the story, I also think you're pretty locked in. It's going to give you a pretty good time, because it manages all of those aspects extremely well. Now, I really quickly want to talk about the ending, and I do want to get into spoilers, so leave now, if you haven't seen it or you haven't played it, whatever, because we're going to go into spoilers right now. So the only problem I have, and look, overall, I like what they did, okay? I like what they did generally. I like that it was a look back at, again, Kratos of old, and basically coming to terms with it. Now, here's the thing. I've always been one that's actually defended the old Kratos. I like old Kratos. Now, was he a man to kill just to kill and to do things just to do it? Kind of, but not fully. And one thing I don't love that Valhalla did, specifically Kratos' monologue at the end of this thing. Now, overwhelmingly, I like the monologue, and I think Chris Judge, once again, freaking crushed it as Kratos. But I almost feel, here's what I honestly controversially feel. I feel this was, in a way, the developers apologizing to the fans for the Kratos of old, saying, hey, he was one-dimensional. He did things just because that was the way gaming was back then. He did stuff just to do it, and he didn't just kill just to kill. He did other things just to do them in, say, the original trilogy, the spin-off games. That was Kratos of old, and now this Kratos has to look back at that Kratos and try to understand why he did it, but more or less forgive, accept. The ideas of forgiveness and accepting that that's who you were, but there was more to you than that. And, you have to kind of work through, like, there's a lot of themes that happen throughout this game, and it honestly gets summarized by Kratos at the end. Again, a lot of that I don't mind, but I'm here just, I guess, in a way, to defend the old Kratos. I think there was a reason he did that stuff. And I'll say this. The number one thing I don't like is, well, I never thought he was a one-dimensional character, and I also thought we already did. And this is what I don't really see a lot of people talking about, and that's okay, but I just want to say it just to be, like, the guy, I guess. Kratos has already done this. Kratos in God of War 3, like Pandora, to me, was actually awesome. Now, I think a lot of people, you either love Pandora and that kind of story element of 3, or you despise it. But I think no matter where you stand on it, Pandora, and really like the last, 40% of God of War 3, was the acceptance. It was Kratos understanding why he did what he did and learning to accept, forgive, whatever, kind of word and move past that. That was literally the point. That was the whole point of besides hope, right? But that was like the entire point. And then you go into God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok, and it's again an example that he's moved on. He knows what he did. He's not pleased with it, but, he did it, and he has to kind of accept it, and he's not going to do the same. And sometimes he falls into the same cliches or, problems that he did. Sometimes he does it with Atreus, right? But he has to kind of work through it. So Atreus is another kind of means to, he understands that some of these things he's already done, and he wants to be better than that. He wants his son to be better than what he was. Like, that was also kind of the point of Atreus, was so that Atreus would understand what it's like. First, Kratos tried to hide that from him, but then the idea was Kratos was, okay, well, the mistakes that I did. I'm not proud of them. I did them. I've moved past that. I'm going to make sure that you don't do that. And that was the whole point. So I guess what I'm saying here is you kind of already did it 2 different times with Pandora and then also with Atreus. So why are we doing it again, other than, I guess, to make him the god of hope, which was cool, and I liked him sitting on the throne. Like, that was awesome, and I think it could have implications going forward, like what happens to God of War, the franchise. Now, I'm actually going to make a video tomorrow, and we're going to talk about it in that video. But I just, that's the part I can't get over. And it actually bugs me. Like, it legitimately bugs me. It's why I wanted to spend an okay amount of time, talking about in this video. I don't think it ruins this DLC because, no matter what, this thing is free, and I think it's incredible value. I just, I question why they did that, and I just don't know. This is my take on it. This is truly how I feel. I feel that the writers at Santa Monica, they are, almost ashamed of the Kratos of old. Whether they should be or shouldn't be, they are ashamed of, what they consider a one-dimensional Kratos. And they want this Kratos to kind of move past, which is fine, and I understand, but I also don't really think he was one-dimensional. I think there was more to him than that. I think they're kind of underselling his character. And, to cap it all off, I feel like he's already done this, and that was the whole point of 3, and that was the whole point of 2018 and now Ragnarok. So I just don't know why they have to keep kind of nailing it into our heads. Old Kratos bad, good Kratos good, right? Over and over. I don't think you need to do that. I think it's already been established that, yeah, he did do things sometimes in a one-dimensional way. But again, I don't think all the way. I think there were reasons he did a lot of that stuff, and he did learn to, okay, well, I really messed up here. I shouldn't have done that, and a lot of acceptance, a lot of, he has to try to forgive himself, otherwise he's going to be stuck with it forever, or, accepting and saying, okay, I did what I did, and, would I, if I had it back, would I have changed what I did? Sure, I wouldn't have made those mistakes a second time. So I don't know. I probably could keep going with it. I'll leave it there. You guys can, of course, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Overall, a very good DLC. We'll talk about the implications it has, to the future of God of War in tomorrow's video, but I really liked it. I think the gameplay was kind of king here. I think they absolutely nailed it. Story, I think overall it was pretty good, but I just don't like that, one single part of it. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.